Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen, hosted by attorneys Sean Garner and Adam Hansen.
Savannah, what would I expect if I'm going to buy a house for fees to a realtor?
So, for instance, there is a new settlement that took place August of last year. It was a huge settlement with the National Association of Realtors, mainly because of compensation towards agents. A huge lawsuit arose because of the 6%. I say in quotation 6% because in reality, it's never a set amount. It's always been negotiable. I want to start by saying that. It's always been negotiable. However, a huge lawsuit took place and NAR settled. So in that settlement, it kicked in a whole lot of new rules and regulations, specifically towards buying agents. Now, a buying agent is you're always required to sign saying you're going to hire your agent, right? Yeah. This is your agent and they work for this brokerage. No problem. Now, they're also required to say, I am going to pay my buying agent such and such amount, whether it's a flat fee, whether it's a percentage of whatever the purchase price is. They got to come in and acknowledge that if the seller doesn't agree to pay this, they're coming in out of pocket for this. So as a buyer, what kind of costs do you have? You have the buyers always pay their appraisal costs. Buyers always pay the home inspection fees. Usually they pay their own closing costs unless they negotiate that in the deal and ask the seller to pay part of it or all of it. They have their down payment. Then, thanks to high interest rates, they usually pay a whole bunch of money to buy down points to get a better rate. And now on top of that, if the seller doesn't agree to pay for the buying agent's compensation, now they're on top of that paying that as well. So those are a bunch of fees that they have to come in by close of escrow. These are a bunch of fees that they have to prove to their lender that they qualify for this loan because they have enough in their bank account for the past 6 months to say, here's where I sourced all my funds and this is why I have enough to even put that amount down. So it's a huge cost now. Before it was, and it can still be this way in some scenarios, seller would agree when an agent takes a listing, seller agrees to pay such and such compensation. Let's say the fee was 6%, and of the 6%, 3% would go, let's say, to selling agent, 3% would go to the buying agent, and you would put that on the MLS. So when buying agents are looking for homes for their clients, they can see, oh yeah, this is what I would get compensated. Now they remove that. You can't put any type of compensation verbiage, hidden message. I've seen, we've seen people try to get creative where they're putting it in the confidential addendum in a weird way, but you can get fined for that. So you can't put any type of compensation in there whatsoever. And now it's up to the buying agent to try to negotiate that into the deal with the seller. Is the seller willing to pay part or all of the buying agent's compensation? So that's new. And that took place. And I've already seen California is already trying to fight it because what happened is a lot of agents started to remove themselves saying, well, I no longer want to be part of MLS. There's no point in me having MLS if I'm not going to see what's in it for my client, what's in it for me. And they started dipping out. Well, they lost so many people that they brought it up now. It's in a lawsuit now trying to get everything back to the way it was prior to this settlement. So again, kind of like the Utah property thing, California is suing. I'm pretty sure other states are going to jump on board as well to try to get things back to normal. Because in the end of the day, if I'm going to list my property, obviously I'm going to pay my agent. But I also want people to come show my home. I want other agents to bring their buyers. I'll compensate them for that. I understand. I've bought homes before. I understand how much a buyer has to put in when they're buying a house. It's a huge difference what the buyer puts in compared to what's coming out of the seller side. So I'm willing to pay a buying agent. In most cases, even now, most listings we get, I would say, right, Jason, they're agreeing like, you know what, I'm still going to compensate the buying agent.
Yeah, and that's our recommendation because as a buyer, I wouldn't want my buyer's agent to be more concerned with, is this property going to pay me money? I want them to be concerned about, is this a good buy for my buyer? And what if they, find out that they're not paying the buyer's agent? What's going to happen is that this buyer's agent might not want to show this property because they know that their buyer can't afford it. So now their buyer is like, they might have lost out on a great home that might have been for them just because the seller agent doesn't want to pay it. So we still, I don't know about you, Savannah, but I still personally recommend you have to pay the buyer's agent. This house will sit. It's not going to be shown if you're not paying the buyer's agent, because that's just the fair way to do it. That's the way it's always been done. just like you're paying me to sell this house. It's a relationship. I depend on the buyer's agent to be able to sell this house. And then what we're going to see a lot too is that buyers aren't going to get buyer's agents anymore. They're just going to try to work with the seller's agent directly. And what's going to happen is the seller's agent's going to end up doing double the work for only half of the pay just to get this house sold.
You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.